Okay, welcome everyone. So Eugene, I think you will be able to share your screen, not now, later when we go to, let me just set that up, when we go to you sharing your game.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good.
we can test that later. So I'll just wait for maybe a few seconds here as more and more people jump in. All right, so welcome everyone. So for those of you that are live here listening, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask Eugene your questions, but I will let you know just at different points during the interview. So if you have a question, the best way to do that is, there are a couple of ways. You can raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I can allow you to speak. So that's one way. The other way is for you to put your questions in the chat, or maybe you can use the question and answer tab there to put your questions. So feel free to ask your questions, and we're going to be entertaining questions all through. But at different points during the interview, I'm going to ask you as well to indicate if you have any questions to ask. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started. So Eugene, thank you. Thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you and for you to share your story with all the chess players and the up-and-coming chess players we have here in Canada. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about how you started in chess? At what age did you start playing chess, and what was fascinating about the game? Why did you pick up chess in the first place?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for inviting me to the interview. So I started playing chess when I was 9, and my dad showed me the game. And then after that, I started playing in some rapid tournaments, just to test out the game. And I didn't really have any other like interests at the time. I was just going to school, so yeah, it was kind of my only hobby. So then after I started playing those rapid tournaments, I started to like the game more and more, and then I just kept playing from there.
Okay, so your dad introduced you to the game, and I
Yeah,
imagine I know your dad is a chess player as well. So
yeah.
he probably introduced you to the game because he was familiar and knows how to play. So when was it, at what point did you or your parents discover that you had a talent for the game?
Oh, so um, like I said, I just played those rapid tournaments, and I just kept playing. And then after like 1 or 2 years, there were like some obstacles, obviously, but I improved like really quickly um at a young age. So like 9 or 10-ish. My rating just like kept going, like my CFC rating just kept growing pretty fast. So then yeah, my parents thought that he's pretty good. So then um he should just keep playing. And I like playing as well. So I just kept participating in tournaments. Um I think my rating grew to like um 1800 after 1 or 2 years. So it was pretty high.
Okay, so that's really good. I mean, at 9, most people would think that that is sort of late and late age
Yeah.
time to start playing chess. And so it's sort of interesting to see that you picked up the game at 9 and you really improved very rapidly shortly after you started playing the game. And so for those of you that are listening, if you're just starting out chess now, just know that it's never too late to pick up the game, to improve, even though you're starting late. And so this is really encouraging that you're sharing this, that you started playing the game at 9. So in terms of the competitive tournaments, so you did mention that you started playing in tournaments. Um, was it like a month, 2 months after you picked up the game? And how was your performance in the first couple of tournaments you played? I know I know typically sometimes it's discouraging when players go to their first tournament and play. I remember when my daughter and son, when they played their first tournaments and they didn't win a game. I know how discouraging that was. Why don't you share some of the insights from your first tournament or the first couple of tournaments you played?
Sure. So my first rapid tournament, I actually did like kind of okay. Like I didn't lose every game, but that was also because it was like mostly other beginners there as well. So I think I scored like 3 out of 5, so more than 50%. But first of all, that was a rapid tournament, and most tournaments are like slow, so they're usually like a couple hours. So I would say like when I first started playing, the main problem for me was that I was playing too fast. So after that tournament, I started playing slow tournaments as well. And yeah, it wasn't easy, like especially when I got paired with like someone that's probably like club player level, I would like just get crushed. So because I was just playing, I was just blitzing out moves and I wasn't thinking. So I just kind of wanted to like either win as fast as possible or just finish the game. So yeah, I would say the a big problem for juniors, like maybe not just juniors, but players starting out, is that they want to finish the game quicker. Like they just like play the first move on their mind. So that was a big problem for me. And yeah, it's like when you start playing in tournaments, if you keep losing, it's pretty normal. So like
Yeah.
you just have to keep analyzing those games and then learning like, okay, what's the actual problem? And then after like maybe even a couple of tournaments of just like losing all your games, it's okay. As long as eventually you figure out what's the problem so that you can start scoring some points. Like even draws are okay as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I think it's encouraging that your first tournament you finished with 3 out of 5 points. So that is really, really good. So that means you must have been at least practicing quite a bit before you even played your first tournament. And I think you make a very good point. I think that's what we see with very new players. Everyone wants to play fast and they don't realize that sometimes it's important to slow down and sort of think a little bit more about your moves before making them. So that's really good. And so I don't know if you remember, but if you can think about the first tournament you ever won. Maybe you can remember and share that story. What was it that made the difference for you to finish in the first position, and what was the feeling like?
Sure. So I think I didn't finish first in a tournament until like I was around 1500. Because maybe not even. I just when I was around like beginner level, which is like under 1,000, I came in like third before, but then after I just kept playing in the higher section. So I think the first time I won was probably like in the under 1600 section. But yeah, it took me a long time. So I think in order to win a tournament, you have to win at least like most of your games and try not to lose like any. If you lose a couple or one or two, it's probably still doable. But in Ontario, like those were the tournaments where I was playing. They were mainly 5 rounders, so you couldn't lose. So you had to win most of the games. But I think if you just like keep improving, it's possible like you're going to win a tournament like one day. Even if it's like a lower section, it's still impressive if you win a tournament. So
Okay, awesome. All right. I know parents play a very critical role. I know your parents are very supportive of you playing chess, and I know they sacrifice quite a bit, taking you to events. So why don't you share a little bit about what that means to you? Because I know a lot of players that drop out in chess, or players that don't continue progressing as well in chess. It may be because they don't get the support that they need. They need to find someone to take them to tournaments, to pay for these events. It's not always cheap sometimes to play chess. So tell us a little bit about that. What does it mean for you, or how important is that for you that you have parents that can support your career in chess?
Yeah, so my parents, like, they play like a very big role in my chess career, because like they help pay for the tournaments. They also bring me to the tournaments, and then at the tournaments they like give support, like emotional support, but also like at home too. When I'm not at the tournaments, they help like push me to improve, so that like I don't just am fixated on one problem for a long time. So if I have a problem that is like causing me not to improve, my dad also like thinks of ways like what the problem might be, so where like as a junior it might be harder to like identify those problems yourself, because like you might like think of excuses like, oh, I was just unlucky that time, or um like, yeah, it was just an unlucky day or something like that. But usually it's easier, it was easier for me at least to be critical of myself, like with my parents, like their help. So yeah, other than like them paying and like them bringing me here, they also were there to like tell me how I could improve, and like when I actually did do well, it was enjoyable with them. So yeah.
Okay, that's
um
good.
I think juniors um are luckier than, like, let's say like people that aren't juniors, who don't have parents to like bring them here or pay for these tournaments, because tournaments, there some of them are like they're not cheap either, and like those lessons, especially if you have coaches, those are even more expensive. So like um I think most non-juniors, they just choose to learn themselves, which is okay too, but a coach also plays a big part as well. So
Okay, so now that you bring up the point of having a coach, at what point did you start using a coach, and how did that improve your play? I know you did mention that sometimes is important as a player, to ensure that you first identify problems that you may have in the game. And I think that if you don't have either parents or coaches, sometimes it may be hard to actually know what the problem is. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about when you started using a coach, and what impact that had on your chess?
so I started using a coach like when I was around like 1200, so maybe like a couple months into the game already, I think I
Oh,
got a
okay, that was
coach.
quick.
Yeah. So um the coach was really important for me, because he would analyze my games, and then he would like immediately identify those mistakes. Um, it's possible if you don't have a coach to do this like by yourself, because like
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're learning by yourself, you want to analyze your mistakes, obviously. You can do it by using an engine. If you can't like spot them out, the mistakes on your own, like why they were mistakes, you can use an engine, but um it's not as easy to understand as like a person telling you why those mistakes were bad, because as that,
Yeah.
you have to be able to understand the engine as well, like why the engine is suggesting these moves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had a coach he was around like 2000 level, so he was much stronger than me. He could analyze my games right away, and um, he would also like teach me new concepts or like openings and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that's good. So for those of you that are listening, if you're thinking of taking your chess to a different level, then it's always important to get a second set of eyes. It may be a coach, it may be other players that you interact with, it may be your parents, at least people that can review your game and maybe provide some good insights on how you can improve and how
Can
you
I
can
add one more
identify
thing?
some
Sorry.
problems. Yeah, go ahead.
So if let's say you don't want to hire a coach, let's say you can't, or you just don't want to, it's not like you don't have to have a coach to improve, but it's like a big help. So if you can't like get a coach, you could like analyze with friends or like other peers, or just get the software like chessbase and the engine to analyze yourself, because the more you improve down the line, you're going to need like chess software, let's say on your computer, just to analyze anyways. So yeah, it is possible to improve without a coach anyway, but it's just a big help.
That's right. Okay, all right, so thank you. So started playing the game at 9 and quickly started improving. So I want to talk a little bit about your first title, and maybe let's talk about the FM title. But before we do that, I know, particularly for players that grew up in a family where everyone plays chess, I know your sister plays. So when you started playing, what was it like? I know your dad taught you the game. So what was it like winning the first game against your dad? I know sometimes for some players, it happens quickly. For others, it takes a little bit of time. So at what point did you win your first game against your dad?
So I won my first game against my dad, like I think when I was already much stronger, like in terms of rating at least. I didn't really play him that often because at the start I would just like either he would go easy or and like still beat me, or he would just like crush me off the board. So I didn't really play with him that often at the start.
Okay.
But I just like waited until I improved, and then I did end up playing a game with him. But after that I was already much stronger. So yeah, I was pretty happy when I beat him. So
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And what was it like growing up in a home where I know your sister is also a very competitive chess player. And so what was it like having a sibling that also plays the game? Do you guys play quite a bit a lot or not often?
we play a bit, not very often, because like sometimes I just show her like some tips, but yeah, I don't play very often because like well, sometimes I play with material odds and then it's more fair, but yeah, when I play her, I don't really go easy, so it's just yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's good. So tell us a little bit about your title. So what was it like, or what was the road like getting your first title, FIDE Master? And it's always is one of those things that players, everyone looks forward to, particularly if you're serious about the game. And so share a little bit about your journey to the FIDE Master title.
Sure. So the FIDE Master title, you get it by improving your rating, your FIDE rating to 2300. So it was like a pretty long-term goal, because I had to, it wasn't easy to improve my FIDE rating, especially in Canada. You needed to play in like those FIDE rated tournaments, and there was a lot of other juniors as well. They were looking to improve their ratings. So there was a lot of ups and downs. I would say like my rating wasn't it didn't like really like uh go up and down as much as like maybe other juniors. Like it kind of went around the same, like slowly up. Um, but I was playing a lot of tournaments. I was playing I think when I was around, trying to remember now when I, yeah, around 12 to 15. 15 was when I got the title. I was playing a lot of tournaments. I was playing every month, like three or four tournaments, always playing. So if there was a tournament that was available, I would be playing. So um that really helped me, because if I did badly in a tournament, there was always the next one. Like I could recover those points back, and then just keep going up. So just playing a lot of tournaments was really helpful. It was kind of tiring too, but I was still in I was still in like elementary, end of elementary and start of high school. So there wasn't like a lot of homework yet. So I was able to uh, dedicate that time to kind of like study chess, and like prepare for those tournaments. So yeah, it was a lot of grinding. So um, I also traveled, I think, out of Canada to international tournaments as well, or out of the province, thanks to my parents for funding that, and like driving me there and stuff like that. So yeah, it takes quite a bit of effort, I'd say. But
That's right. So
that title, it's like just like a national master title or any other title, it kind of it looks cool on like whatever they post on like the pairings and stuff like that. Like when sometimes for certain players, when you see that title, it makes a difference, because your opponent like might see that title and then he might play different against you, as opposed to if you didn't have a title. I'm just saying for certain players. But yeah, it's wasn't easy, I would say.
yeah, I think it's always intimidating to be paired against a player that is titled. But thank you for sharing that, because if I understand the important point, you're saying that, well, play as often as you can, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why you were able to improve your FIDE rating, to the point where you're able to get your title as the FIDE master. Was there any point that you were tempted to give up? And if so, why don't you share a little bit about that? And so that some of us can learn, because I know anytime we're trying to accomplish a certain goal, it's always easy to give up. You did mention that there were obstacles along your journey. And so I sort of imagined that maybe you probably encountered certain times when you were tempted to give up. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, I would say more than once, like maybe 3 or 4 times, I was like seriously like I wanted to give up. So that was mainly because of either like the tournament performance. Let's say like a certain major tournament, I might have played very poorly and lost a lot of rating. And sometimes I would have those tournaments where um even if I wasn't necessarily playing bad, um like usually for most tournaments I do bad and I would play bad, but let's say like I would play kind of decent moves, and then at the end of the game I would just like collapse. Like I would just blunder something out of nowhere, and then I would think about it, so then that would affect the rest of the tournament. But um my parents would like they would still bring me to the next tournament. I would still be willing to go to the next tournament, um, even if I didn't want to play because um, I kind of wanted to like bounce back from that loss. So there was actually a period, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I had a bad tournament and then I kind of just worked by myself for a bit. Like I didn't have a coach, like I kind of dropped my coach. So I just started learning by myself, like very seriously. And then
Hmm.
that helped me for the next tournament to improve and just like bring back the rating. Because um sometimes when you have a coach, you become too reliant on the coach. So you don't work uh on your own as much. So that's the most important thing. If you want to improve, it mainly falls on you. So everything, all your progress, it's like 80% on you. So you have to
Mm.
uh, study by yourself. The coach can help, but only up to a certain point. Yeah, it's really like your own effort. So
Yeah, so that's an important point. I think to accomplish anything in life, you really need to be self-motivating, and that's essentially what you're saying for players to know. Why don't you tell us a little bit about? I know you've done very well in chess. If you look back to times when you didn't perform as well, and to times when you really did well, or maybe to certain tournaments where you did very well. What was the difference? What is your preparation like going into a tournament? If you can provide some hints on what makes you successful, particularly in events, compared to events where you didn't do as well, or even to games, if you have to bring it down to that level on a game by game basis. So what's your preparation going into games, and what's it that makes the difference?
so when I improved to um like my FIDE rating was around above 2000. So at that point, especially when I went to those international tournaments or like those invitationals, where it was really easy to prepare for your opponent, you could just go online and then see his openings. So that was how I prepared for my games from then on. I would just prepare for the opening. But even if you prepare for the opening, there's a lot of other factors, especially in a long tournament,
Mhm.
like a 9 round. I would consider that long compared to like a normal 5 round.
Mhm.
There's a lot of factors that I had to pay attention to. Personally, for me, I had like some psychological problems that I had to pay attention to. So um, I would say a big problem for me was like nervousness. So let's say I got paired to against a higher rated player. So I sometimes would be nervous against them. And I think that's like kind of common when you see a higher rated player, you get nervous. And I know a lot of people were telling me like just play as if you would play anybody else. And
That's right.
that's kind of easier said than done. Um, but it's exactly like true because um, if you play like how you normally would, you kind of respect the higher rated player. You can see like you're not as aggressive. You kind of in those moments, critical moments, you don't go for it. So you don't go for those critical lines. And then your opponent has a very easy time to just take over and then he'll slowly grind you down because that's what a higher rated player is good at. So
Mhm.
he's good at grinding you down. He knows those end games or he knows those like positional positional kind of tricks.
Yeah.
But if you choose like the dangerous route, he might miscalculate something. Now, this isn't the case for like all higher rated players, but it was for me especially because when I played higher rated players, I would just like go for the safe path usually, but that doesn't create any problems for like the said higher rated player. He doesn't have to think. And even though you might last like maybe 100 moves, you're still gonna lose. It's the same result. So even if you choose a dangerous route and you miscalculate something and you just get crushed off the board in like 20 moves, you lost, but you learned that like, oh, what you did wrong, maybe you miscalculated something. It's going to happen when you play higher rated players. You might get crushed off the board. So I had to accept that. Even at my level, I still struggle with that. Like, let's say against GMs, I might play like differently than I might play against like an IM or an FM. So even now I still have that problem. So, but I wouldn't say like it's a problem for most players. It's just a common problem I see when people play higher rated players. And another problem I had in those international events was that I kept thinking about the game before. So let's say I won a nice game, like a critical game.
Yeah.
Even if you win, you have to put that away. You just have to go on to the next round and then try to do well on that. So win or lose, I had to keep trying to forget about the round before. And especially when I lost, it was harder to, let's say I lost and then I had to sleep and then play the next round. It was hard for me to forget that loss as well. So especially in chess, like kind of different from other sports, the psychological part is really important. So you just have to keep that in mind. It's not always about like what's on the board and like your preparation. Like your preparation obviously makes a key role, but yeah, you just have to make sure you're concentrated and not thinking about other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. You did mention that, well, it's not always about what's on the board. So it's psychology, is getting enough sleep, I guess, is also eating properly. So in terms of psychology, if we can narrow down on that, how do you use that in your games, particularly when you're playing when you're playing high-rated games, and how can players, others, learn from that? I think, and I totally agree with you. I think psychology is a big part. So maybe, I don't know if that's something you want to share a little bit. How do you use that? How do you improve on that, even if you can, as a chess player?
Yeah. So like I said, it was a big part. But it might not be obvious, especially when I was under like 1500. It wasn't important to me at all. I was just looking at what was on the board. Mainly at that level, it's not really that important, because if you just have the better knowledge, you just studied more or something like that, you will beat them. So but when you kind of get to those levels, like 2000 or even like 1800, around that, there are some things I've noticed that affect like psychologically. So one thing is offering a draw. So people might think like offering a draw, okay, someone offered a draw, he just wants to split the point. But actually, for some people, offering a draw, it's kind of saying like, okay, I'm a bit scared of losing. I kind of just want to split the point. So especially at higher levels, they might just decline the draw. And then when someone declines your draw offer, if you can't like switch your brain to like, okay, thinking, I have to actually play to get this draw, then you might just misplay the position and lose. So that's happened to me before. So when I reached like around 2200, I've just stopped offering draws at that point. So yeah, for me personally, that was a big problem. If I was scared to lose, I would try and go for the draw, but that's usually not how you should go for a draw. You should just play the best position move in that position. So yeah.
Okay, so that's an important point. I didn't even know that. So you're saying that as a player, if you're offering a draw, that may have a negative impact on you, right? And so that is good. So what about if we have to turn the table around? What if someone offers you a draw? What does that mean to you in terms of when you're looking at it psychologically?
Yeah, so if it kind of depends on the position, obviously, but usually I get draw offers if like they're lower rated. So that's what lower rated usually do. They try and like get the draw because obviously you're higher rated. But yeah, it to me at least it shows that they don't have as much confidence in actually getting a draw, so they just want to get the draw. Actually, if they had that much confidence to get the draw, then they wouldn't have offered me it. So that's my thinking. I'm not saying like earlier offering a draw is like totally bad. Like obviously it's legal and a lot of people do it, but when you get to those like those open section levels, like the high section level, there aren't like that many draw offers compared to like maybe the sections below. So yeah, at least for me.
Okay. All right. So for those of you online, if you want to ask a question, just let me know. You can raise your hand and then we can look at that. I'm just looking at, there's a question here. They want to find out, I don't know if you mentioned this. So when did you get your FIDE title? I know you started playing at 9. At what age did you get your FIDE title, or maybe year, if you remember?
So I got it in 2018, I think early 2018. So that would be when I was born in 2003. So that'd be like maybe 14, just before I turned 15. And
Okay.
yeah, now I'm 18. So
Okay. All right. So I know there are a couple of other players I've interviewed. I hear something. So they say, well, it's easy to get to 2000 in rating, but it's a lot harder to make any improvement after that. Would you agree? And if you agree, why do you think that is?
yeah, so for me, actually getting to the 2000 rating, I'm trying to remember. I think that was an obstacle for me. I think like, or maybe I think it was 2000 CFC. But around that, there was a stage I was not improving. But after that, after 2000 treaty, I don't think I had like a really hard time improving from that rating. I think it was before I was trying to get FM. So FM is 2300. So before that, around 2200, that was kind of difficult for me because that was like just before the title. So I would say around 2200 was difficult for me.
Okay. All right, so Pavan, I think you have a question. I'm gonna allow you to talk. You can ask your question live. You gotta unmute yourself as well. Pavan, are you there? Okay, so Pavan, I think you're on mute. What about Leo? Leo is here. You can ask your questions as well. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay, so what did you do when you like started chess to improve?
Oh, okay. So when I first started playing, I was playing in those tournaments, but then I know a lot of people were telling me like to read like chess books, and I was 9 or 10, so at that age for me I was not really it was hard for me to read those chess books because there were long variations, um a lot of analysis. So if you're someone that doesn't like like want to read those books, but you want to improve, I watched like chess videos, like chess DVDs, so those were easier to understand for me. And um those um super GM tournaments, I enjoyed watching those, especially even now. I enjoy watching those because I like watching like the best players in the world play, and you can just watch them online now. So that it motivates me a bit because you see like how they play and stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Leo. I think Pavan is here. Pavan, you can unmute yourself and ask your question as well. Go ahead, Pavan. Pavan, are you there? We can't hear you. Okay, so I think Pavan is having issues. Okay, all right. So let's continue. In terms of chess, I know you have, or I mean, I'm assuming, maybe you tell us if you want to continue in terms of pursuing your IM title. I think that's next for you. Pavan, are you there?
Yeah, I got my mic working. I just
Okay. All right, ask your question quickly.
So then, with the games, what do you say that we have to master the end games? Like, is it just practice for the end games? Like, like, should we do like certain studies or certain books, or certain like videos, homeworks, or what, like that?
Yeah, so when I was a junior, so this might relate to juniors more. A major weakness for juniors is their end games, as for me as well. When I was like playing as a junior, a major weakness is end game, so that's a good point. I was mainly just working on my openings, but you need to know some key end games, especially in those rook end games, like how to defend down a pawn and stuff like that. If you want to know like exact titles, I think like Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual is just one that the only one I can think of. But I wouldn't do those like studies, like those very hard studies that like are trained to kind of train your creative thinking. I wouldn't do those because like those usually don't happen in the game. But like those key end games that you might need to know, so that it might occur, like let's say checkmating with a bishop and knight, like you have to know that, or checkmating with two bishops, or like the Philidor rook endgame down a pawn. And yeah, just like the major ones you should know, I would say. You don't need to know like every single one, but yeah.
Okay, all right. So tell us what's next for you. Do you want to go all the way to get your IM title or GM title? If you do, tell us a little bit about that and how you're working towards that.
So right now I'm going to be starting university, so I'm gonna see how that is. I would be interested in pursuing my IM title, but I might be once I start university, I might have interest there, and then I might want to like start working or something. I don't really know yet. So yeah, right now I'm not really sure. Like I wouldn't say I'm like aggressively pursuing the IM title, because actually I was in high school, but even back then I didn't have that same motivation for the FM title. So yeah, that was unfortunate. And then now I'm going to university, so I'm not really sure. I can't give a certain answer.
Oh, congrats. What school are you going to?
I'm going to McMaster in Hamilton. So
Okay, and this has nothing to do with chess. No chess scholarship, no chess team.
No, I will probably join their chess club, but nothing like serious stuff like that.
Okay, okay. So I know you've participated in a couple of IM NUMs, and I recall the one we hosted in February last year. That you came so close to getting your IM NUM. So tell us a little bit about that event, because that event you did amazingly well, did very well. What was it about that event, or what in your opinion do you think was the reason why you didn't get your NUM?
Yeah, so I think the tournament was run pretty well, and then like I also did like pretty good as well. So I was comfortable with like the tournament environment. I played there before. I knew most of the players as well, so like I knew their styles, their openings and stuff like that, and I prepared like quite a bit for that tournament as well. I wouldn't say I got like lucky, but like there was a bit of luck too. But just in that tournament, I was playing better like than other norm tournaments, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it, but yeah, I beat 2 IMs, so like I don't usually do that. So
Yeah.
And I only lost 1 game. So that was the crucial game. Like I said before, psychology is like a major part. So just like in that game, I was just too focused because I wanted to win that game, and then after that there would only be 1 game. So I just needed a half point in the last game. So I wanted to win that one because I was white as well. So I was just pushing too hard. I think I did end up with a winning position, but I just like collapsed under the critical moment. So that's another weakness of mine. At those like critical moments, I don't know what it is about me, but maybe I just get nervous. So yeah, I've been trying to work on that, especially for those norm tournaments. Yeah.
Okay. So are you still looking forward to play? Do you have more NUM tournaments lined up? I know you're starting school next month. So probably that's not a focus for you, but are you looking to play more NUM tournaments?
Yeah, if it's like well, now because of the whole COVID situation, there aren't really any over the board tournaments, but I would yeah, I would play in an over the board norm tournament that I'm able to go to. Maybe it's close to me, or like it's convenient for me to go. Like I wouldn't go to the USA while I'm studying because
Sure.
it's both expensive, and then US is not really that safe as well as now.
That's right.
So
That's
yeah.
right. All right, so we're going to be wrapping this up soon. So why don't you tell us, what's your best opening as white?
My best opening, so my most reliable opening, I guess I would consider it the best is my English opening. I would start with 1c4.
Okay.
I consider that my best or most reliable because I usually don't lose with that opening. Like I have pretty good winning percentage, especially like lower rated that I need to beat. And for higher rated, I usually don't lose with that opening. So that's why I
Wow.
consider it with
Why is that? Do you know why? Or what's special about how do you play it, or what makes it unique to you that you don't
yes.
lose?
I know a lot of people consider that opening like very boring and very dry. So a lot of people don't play it. They play e4 or d4. So not a lot of people play the English. But I played it like I think all the way when I was like 2000 until now. So yeah, it's just other than people calling it boring and dry, there's not a lot of like dangerous lines where you have to know the exact move in that position in that order, like let's say some Sicilian line like the Sicilian Dragon, or yeah, you have to know those theoretical moves. In the English, you don't really need to know those. You just need to know the setups. If you keep playing that English opening, like for me, you kind of get the feel for the position, or as some players would call it, you know like what you should do in that moment. Mainly in that opening, it's just plans that you should know. So that's why I guess I don't really have a high losing percentage in that.
Okay, so would you consider it as an aggressive attacking opening, or maybe not?
No, I would consider it more conservative. You can attack with it. You can like play aggressive later with it, but at the start it's more conservative, and then you kind of choose how depending on how your opponent plays, how you want to play it. But I've seen players play English like slowly, and then later they attack as well. Like it's possible. It's very
so what about
flexible.
as black? Was your response as a black player with the white pieces? Was your response to e4 and your response to d4 or c4 from the other player?
Yeah, so for e4 I know a few openings. So I played the Scandinavian before, so that's kind of been solid for me. But as I've improved, I haven't really used that anymore, because like you're bringing your queen out. Scandinavian is basically e4 d5 takes queen takes. You're bringing your queen out, so like those really high rated players, they know what to do against it, so they just get an advantage, like a slight advantage. So I don't usually play that anymore. I also play the two types of Sicilian. So yeah, those are what I lean towards now, because those they fight kind of for equal chances, but they're more risky as well, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. All right, awesome. What would you say is your best chess book?
My best chess book, like one that I've read.
That's right. If you have to recommend a book to players that are listening, what would you say?
What would I say? Let me try and think. I've read some books about Capablanca, so I've read like his best games book. I guess, oh, okay, actually, now that I think of it, there was another book. It's a book about Magnus Carlsen. I think his coach wrote it. It's not very long. There's a lot of stories, and it shows his journey, kind of his crucial games in his journey to becoming a grandmaster. So it's not very long. It's not, I would say, like the book that kind of helped me improve like a lot or something. It's not very intensive, but I really enjoyed reading that book, because there's stories and it showed his game, and I just like watching him play as a player, because he's the best player in the world. So
okay, so that's good. Would you consider him as your, or who is your favorite player on the global scene when you look at all the chess players?
yeah, my favorite player, I would say it's Magnus, because yeah, just his style and his he's the best player in the world. So
okay, awesome. If you will recommend or provide 3 tips for those that are listening here in terms of how they can improve their chess, what do you think, or what would you say those 3 top tips will be for up and coming players?
oh, 3 tips. So 3 tips. So I would say confidence is really important. So for any game, you have to go into that game like actually believing that you're going to win, even if you're playing a GM or something. You have to go into it not thinking that you're going to lose. So a lot of players, they might like, if it's very high rated, they might go into it and they might think, oh, let me just try and survive against him for as long as I can. You can't go into that game like that. You have to actually believe that you're going to win. Second tip is time management. I would say, so if you play too fast, then you have to work on that. You have to start thinking for better moves. Or on the other side, if you play too slow, that's also a problem, because then you'll run into time trouble, and then in those crucial moments, you'll just be blundering. You won't play those best moves. So I've dealt with both. It's not good, so you have to learn how to manage your time effectively. And the third tip, let me try.
Yeah, I mean, I think those two would be great. So for those of you that are listening, confidence, time management is important, and I think you've also provided a lot of other tips during the call. The importance of getting a coach, the importance of staying motivated, learning from your mistakes, and even psychology that you mentioned. Because I think when you get to a certain level, psychology also becomes very, very important. So for players that are here listening to you, maybe they are motivated, they want to learn more about you, they want to get to talk to you, to reach you. What's the best way for people to reach you, to get a hold of you if they have further questions?
Yeah, if you are interested to like ask me stuff or get to know me, you can email me, I guess, your questions. So yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, and I think we'll provide our email in the notes to this call. Okay, so now we're gonna transition. You're gonna walk us through one of your best games. And so why don't you go ahead, share your screen, and then walk us through the game, and maybe we'll have other questions after that.
Okay. So yeah, can you see my board?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that's good. So let me just talk a bit about this game. So this game was in the last IM tournament I played, and it was around round 6 actually. So I needed, excuse me, I was white against an IM from France, and I think, let me try and remember. I think I needed a couple more wins, like a couple more points to actually get it. So I need to start scoring some wins because I think I drew a few games before this. So yeah. So before this game, I've actually played my opponent before, but I've never beat him. I've drawn against him only, I think. So yeah, in this tournament, looking to beat him. So I started with e4. So before I said c4 was my best opening, I decided not to play it because I thought e4 would give me the best winning chances I could fight for a win. And he played Sicilian, which I expected. And f3, d6. So I think I prepared for d6 and e6, these two lines of the Sicilian against him, because I think he played both. And d4. And here he played knight f6. So I think, if I remember, I was expecting him to take because that's what people usually do. And I was going to play queen takes d4. So this is not a main line of the Sicilian, but it's called the checkover variation. But I play this a lot. Like I've played this quite a bit, so I know quite a bit about this line, and it kind of goes like this. It kind of goes, let's say he plays bishop d7. This is the most popular line. And basically white gives up the bishop pair for quick development, and he's gonna attack on the king side, like at some point. Like bring the queen back, knight, whoops, knight, and then push the pawns. But anyways, he didn't play this, so he played knight f6 first. So if you guys have never seen this line, basically if white takes on c5, then black's just gonna take on e4. And then if white takes on d6, black's just gonna follow up with knight c6 and then take back here. And white can't win a pawn because, yeah, he's gonna lose a rook. So yeah, this is good for black. Usually the line goes like bishop b3, knight takes c6, and then black just follows it up like this. But if we look at the flip side, I actually play this as black. Knight f6. If I want to avoid white taking with the queen, I play knight f6. So basically, but it was a surprise to me because I didn't expect him to play that, and I just continued with knight c3. Now it is possible to take with the queen. It's just not as good with the knight on c3 because you can't play c4, but it's still possible. The main reason I didn't play this was because I felt that he prepared something against me in this line, so I continued with knight takes e4, which is the main line, obviously. And he decides to play the classical. The funny thing is, I actually play the classical as black, so I was familiar with it as black basically, but I didn't really play it as white. This was like one of my first times. So I played bishop g5, which is the best reply, I think. E6 and queen e2. So this is just theory. White's idea is to castle queen side and then kind of attack in the center and the king side. Okay, so a6, still theory. Bishop d7, f3. So there were two options. There was f4 or f3. f4 is more dangerous for both sides, so it's more double-edged. But I played f3, which is, I think it's still a good move. It prepares g4 in the future. So he took on d4. I played bishop e7 here as black. So I wasn't really familiar with like knight takes d4. So yeah, I was just, sorry. I was kind of already thinking at this point. b5. So I wouldn't say b5 is a serious mistake. But I think bishop e7 is more natural because you're developing. I mean, black's not really developed as much as white yet, so yeah. I think b5 is still okay. g4. And now he plays h5. So I think h5 is a mistake. But it's the main idea in the classical Sicilian, at least. When white plays g4, black should meet it with h5. So I think that's what my opponent was thinking. He saw me play g4 and then he was like, yeah, let's play h5. That's the typical idea. But in this case, it's a mistake because he hasn't really developed enough to do that. Like he hasn't played bishop e7, queen c7. So yeah, he develops his rook, but like it's not really what he wanted to develop. f4. Oh, and h3 is possible, but like I wouldn't say it's good because you have to take this way. So yeah. So basically, I was like just trying to develop as fast as possible and attack the center as fast as possible. So he was kind of like wasting time playing h5. So bishop e7, bishop e2. Okay, so here there was a better option. h4 is better than bishop e2. Mainly because the rook is now unable to go to h3, and I can follow it up with bishop e2 after. A sample line is bishop c6, bishop e2, h5, followed by rook h3, and possible e5. So it's very uncomfortable for black because he can't move the knight. There might be a threat of h6 at any point, and there might be a threat of e5. If he moves the knight, then I will just take, and he has to take with the king. Obviously, he doesn't want to do that because then his king will be unsafe or in the center. So yeah. But I played bishop e2, allowing rook h3, and now I played e5. So at this point, it was, I think we didn't really spend a lot of time. Yeah, maybe each of us spent like 20 minutes. It was still kind of in the opening phase, but I thought like it was kind of bad for him already. Mainly because I was a lot more developed and I was already attacking him. But here there's actually there is actually a good line, or like a saving line for him. So it looks bad, but there is a saving line. So in the game he played bishop c6. So this is not good. So he should have taken first, and once I take back, now he plays bishop c6. So the key difference is that he is able to trade queens. And a sample line would be queen takes d8, rook takes the knight, and then he's just going to win one of these two. So bishop d2, and obviously I want to give up my my exchange rather than a whole bishop, and this is the best option for black. So if we count the material, black has a rook and pawn for knight and bishop, so that's equal. But I would say white is better because he has this passed pawn, he has the two bishops, and usually two minor pieces is better than a rook and pawn, depending on the position. But yeah, I would say this is slightly better for white. So if I don't want to trade queens, then black is fine after knight d7. Black is fine here because his bishop actually controls the e4 square, so my knight can't get to d6. If my knight can get to d6, then I would be much better because his king would be unable to castle. But in this case, my e5 pawn is weak, and I'm unable to take advantage of the dark squares after I take this. So yeah, he should have taken on e5 first. After bishop c6, I had to spend some time because there were quite a few options here, and we can take a look at all of them. So if I took on d6, this would be a mistake because he will take on h1 and then just be up in exchange here because he just took my rook on h1 for the bishop on e7. So another option is taking on f6, but then he would just take back on f6, and then my bishop would be trapped. So yeah, this is fine for him. Oh, I should probably go over one more thing. After e5, it is possible to bring back the knight, but this wouldn't be good for him because, like I said, my knight would go to e4 and then d6, and then I would be winning, like not by material, but just by the position. I would be attacking his king, and it's not good for him. So that's why bishop c6 is the only move. Okay, so he played bishop c6. Rook g1 is also an option, but then he would just trade the queens like this. Oh, this is an even worse line because I lose in exchange. If I don't trade the queens, he's fine as well. So the best line is bishop takes f6. And if he takes my rook, then I'm just gonna be winning here. Basically, this is an intermediate move, intermediate check. If he goes here, then I queen. And yeah, so he can't really take my rook. If he takes with the king, then I'll just check and then take the bishop back. If he takes with the bishop, it's also not good because I'll have a queening pawn. So he has to take with the pawn. Now, if he had taken this, he would have been able to trade queens and it would have been fine for him, but not in this line because queens are still on the board and I play rook g1, threatening rook g8. So now he can't take here because rook g8, bishop f8, and I guess just what's the best line here? Probably just queen c5, threatening checkmate and attacking the queen and attacking the bishop as well. So that's not an option. He played rook takes h2 in the game. If he took here, then I think I would check bishop f8 and play just take back. And if d5, then c5. Attacking these two again. Sorry. So he just took on h2. I took on d6, bishop f8, knight e4. So the idea with knight e4 is obviously to attack this pawn, and he can't actually take the knight because if he takes the knight, then I play d7, and then it's mate. So he has to play rook h6. Now I play rook g8. It was possible to play rook g8 here, but I just wanted to like keep the tempo, keep the momentum, sorry, of attacking. So here he has to waste a move playing rook h6, and my knight's already in a good spot as well. I always have like the potential for d7, like not right now, but the knight can jump to d6 and attack f6. So yeah, now I play rook g8, and now I'm actually threatening d7. Let's say he plays like let's say he ignores it. I actually have a threat, which is d7. If he takes with the queen, then I will play queen c5. and queen e7, queen takes. So yeah. So that's the threat. If he takes with the bishop, then I have knight d6, king e7, knight f5, takes, queen d6, king e8, checkmate. If he goes back, I have queen d6, queen e7, knight takes. So yeah. So that's the threat. That's why he played bishop d5. And here I simply played bishop f3. So I didn't want to play knight c3 because then he can take. So I played bishop f3 first. Kind of eyeing the bishop on d5, getting ready to attack it. Rook c8, and now I play knight c3. Basically, if black can't take this because of d7. So yeah, basically I'm just trying to kick the bishop out from d5, and now he took on d6. Now I took with the knight. I think bishop taking with the bishop is also possible, but I wanted to keep the bishop because I felt it would be better for attacking the king. So yeah, or I just calculated this. Rook e1, he played king d8. If king d7, well, king d7 is better, but then I just played bishop g4, and he has to play f5, rook e6. But here I'm just up in exchange, so yeah, it should be winning. In the game, he played king d8, and then I just calculated rook takes f8. So yeah, and here he resigned because if king d8, rook d1, king e7, queen d7. And if king b8, then just queen b7. So this was, I think it was like 2 hours. It was shorter than like my other games. And I won, which was like kind of surprising because he was an IM. But I thought I played pretty well in this game, so that's why I featured it in this interview. But yeah, I guess it was not in my usual style because usually I like play long games and I like kind of grind my opponent down, but in this game it was like full of tactics and yeah, it was a good game for me. So if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. Oh, okay. So I see somebody asked, can we go faster in the opening if it's not complex and we know it very well? So yeah, if you've analyzed the opening and you know it well, and you know like what's the best move, then you can just play through it, I guess. Yeah, I don't see any other questions though. So
Okay, so does anyone have any other question to ask? Okay. All right then. So thank you so much, Eugene, for making the time to come to share your story and to analyze this game with the rest of us today. So thank you so much. I don't know if you have any final comments to make. If not, we can end it right here.
well, thanks for inviting me to the interview. I enjoyed it.
Okay, awesome. All right, so thank you everyone. So I'll see all of you again at 3 o'clock for the next masterclass with I am Olivia. Okay. All right, so bye everyone. Thanks again, Eugene, for making the time to come today to share your story.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, bye everyone.